Hello, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here. It is again my honor to share my insights and views around some of the greatest impact that AI is taking place in our environment. Today, I'd like to talk specifically around education and HR in the AI age. I guess with the release of the latest generative AI technology, we are definitely seeing AI playing a very important role in the whole education and HR space. So let's talk about how the generative AI is really, and I mean really revolutionizing just-in-time learning and learn in the workplace. So to begin off, I'm actually proud to be part of this whole movement where we look at AI in the business as well as AI as a technology. It is very important we differentiate between the two, where one looks at the process automation and how better decision making can take place for companies to reach higher level of efficiency, competitiveness, and innovation. And on the other hand, it's important for us to understand how AI as a technology can harness great computing power to simulate human intelligence and, more importantly, build a stronger human machine interface. Well, my name's Oliver Tian. As per the instruction, I'd like to take a moment to kind of introduce myself briefly around some of the work that I do. First of all, I'm part of this organization called AERA, which stands for International Alliance of Robotics Association. This is based out of Hangzhou in China. We do quite a lot of work, particularly to look at how we can cross collaborate within the Chinese community as well as the worldwide community. In addition, I'm also part of the Global Robot Cluster, which is based out of Daegu in Korea. We are a network 22 countries around the world, and that allows us to have a window into the different countries and innovations that's taking place among the different countries. We do quite a few things, particularly in Asia. We have some activities that look at fostering relationship between the ASEAN countries, and more importantly, looking at common issues and items that we want to deal with. So this is an example of an activity that we had in 2019. And just in November itself, we had a discussion around some of the robotic standards that we want to apply for the Asian countries and some of the global developed countries. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. I am a founder and director of Tian Associates, and in Singapore, I'm a advisor to the Asia Pacific Assistive Robotics Association. Now, to kick off our discussion, I want to kind of define ourselves in a number of areas, right? First, of course, we talk about science, we talk about technology, we talk innovation, common terms that we use quite often around this area, these topics. Particularly, I think we need to understand that science is what the world is, what it is, right? It is the facts that's happening, and technology is what we can make of it, right? How the human would like to create the world to be. So the two combined together gives you innovation, which is the adoption of science and technology, and this is how we want to make things happen. So this is very important for us to define because a lot of times we look at science, technology, innovation as a common term, as they're synonymous to each other, but in actual fact, there's quite a bit of key differentiation. Now, AI. Let's talk about AI. There's a lot of messages going around about AI, and more importantly, this strong question that came out recently, right? That AI will eventually be an offshore and an innovation that we want to create that will kind of displace what we do. We need to understand that it's actually more than that, right? And in a recent report by UNESCO, it was predicted that AI in education will be worth $6 billion, right? And the research believes that it will eventually add up to about $20 billion by 2027, and that's a huge market, particularly the impact on the workplace itself. The question is how much of this is real and how much of this is fake, and more importantly, right? What does it mean to the HR function? What does it mean to educate, formal education, and then moving into corporate training, which affects the HR function? The key concern, I guess, most of us think about is: will AI eventually take over our job? Is AI a friend or a foe? Right? And this question It's very hard to answer, and a recent report by Conferry suggested that business leaders are really tapping into the use of AI to replace jobs. Of course, many a times it's not just a replacement of job, it's really how we can enhance on the jobs, how we can let the human machine interface in the most appropriate way that allows us to be a lot more efficient. um, in a May interview, Thomas Friedman, a columnist, and of course some of us may remember him as the author of The World is Flat. And he talked about how ChatGPT and AI is really affecting us in a number of ways. And he suggested that we need to be a job finder and not so much just a job maker. What does that mean? That means that you will need to be able to learn just in time versus just in case. So let me differentiate between the two concepts. Just in case is probably what we traditionally go through in our education system. We learn concepts just in case we need to use the ideas, we need to use the skills in time to come. We attend a curriculum, we attend a class because we think we may need the skills. But in today's world, with technology moving so fast, many a times when we are trying to solve a problem at work, we discover that the knowledge that we acquired in the past is not good enough. We need just-in-time learning. And this is where I think as a HR manager, as a business manager, we need to equip our workforce with the right set of skills that allows us, right, that allows us to have just-in-time acquisition of new knowledge. So I believe what is happening now it is that we do not understand unless we are able to create. This message by Richard Freeman gave us a very good hint that if we cannot create anything, we really do not understand what we're doing. When we go to the traditional classes, we find that most of the time we may not understand because we don't apply. And why is that the case? Because the skills expected in the future is slowly evolving. Problem solving and critical thinking are very key. And that requires us to access to information and knowledge at the tip of your fingers. The rules have changed. And that's a clear fact. We need to do the right thing at the right time. And more importantly, we must be able to use those technology to augment our human capability and possibly extend our human potential. Now, I want to draw the closure to AI, right? Many of us think that AI will replace us. The fact is, AI is probably just a technology, and the technology will not replace us. However, having said that, we must understand that a person who knows how to use AI will eventually replace the person who do not. And that is the most important message that we want to share in this presentation. So how does that affect the human resource? Let's look at human resource, right? Most of the time, the job of a human resource manager is to find the right skills for the company so that the company can use those resources, those talents to do the right thing and help the company make business. So the human resource manager is no longer just simply defining the career path, no longer just simply assigning an employee to attend a class. It is very important to match the right skill to the right business problem. And with the advance of AI, things are changing so fast. Here on the right-hand side, I show you a chart on how the adoption of technology has taken place over the last 20 years, since the year 2000, right? Handwriting recognition, for example, took almost 20 years to come to a level of maturity and adoption by the different communities. Image recognition took about 10 years, slightly more than 10 years perhaps. But if I look at generative AI and language understanding, it went so fast within the last 5 years, and more importantly, in the last 1 year itself, right? ChatGPT has reached a high level of maturity and adoption by the business community. What does it say? What does that mean to us? It means that technology such as AI is getting better, and more importantly, better faster. There's no such thing as status quo anymore. We are all moving, and we're moving at a very fast speed. So it is important that we understand how we can embrace technology, not ignore it. Otherwise, we will be falling behind. Another fact to note is that the world around us is also moving very fast, and sometimes faster than how we can keep up with it. right? So this is just a timeline of how skills as a requirement for business needs, business processes is definitely taking place, right? From the creation of digital technology to the macroeconomic pressures that's taking place, clearly, all right, there's a need for us, the need for business leaders to take huge consideration on how this can be. From a learning and how a learning ends in class or in any environment to a point whereby we become job ready, to a point whereby the job starts and you become efficient on the job. So HR plays a very important role to see the end-to-end of work efficiency. So what can AI do? How can AI play a part to support this whole skills journey? Now, I say this because of the fact that with AI, many things are changing, right? The traditional HR function is very much affected. And more importantly, AI can play a key role, right, to supply the right skill to the right um, people who needs those skills. And as Thomas Friedman has actually mentioned in his interview, he says that we cannot depend on schools, formal institutions, to have a deanery come together and decide whether or not to incorporate a certain concept or certain knowledge into the curriculum before they can teach it. It is so important that we now build a close connection between industry and the institutions to ensure that as we train up the new next generation talents, they are well equipped to immediately provide the support to the businesses that need those skills. The key message I think we need to understand here is knowing is not enough. We must apply. And willingness to know is also not enough. We must take action and perform. Right? So the actual application of knowledge is so important in our today's world. And hence, you see many institutions, whether they're colleges or whether they are universities, they take a heavy consideration around how their students play a part in industry internship to get them the exposure, to get them the understanding, to get them the appreciation of how knowledge can be applied and they can put their skills and knowledge into action. I draw your attention to a recent report just in September 2023 by McKinsey and Company, where they talk about the organization of the future. The organization of the future is going to be one that's enabled by generative AI, but driven by people. And this is a very important message because generative AI itself, right, is not alive. It's humans who are alive, and humans will lead the process to enable the future generation. Now, for those of you who are interested, please feel free to look up this document, which shares a lot around how and what we're predicting the future organization to be. In the same report itself, there were a couple of mentions. They interviewed a number of large organizations, get the appreciation of what this means to the workforce. And the various leaders of businesses actually responded in a number of ways that suggest that the impact of AI adoption in the organization workforce is going to be extremely high. Now, I don't need to look into the details of this report, but what is more important is that we must get behind the adoption of automation and digitalization so that we can finally close the gap of skills inability, and more importantly, to help all this organization have a broad view of the capabilities that they need and how they can adopt this capability, how they can deploy this capability to help them with the business advances. So what does that mean eventually? And I think it brings us to the impact of AI in learning. And I draw your attention to what I talked about before, just in case learning and just in time learning, that there is probably an equivalent and there's no one formula for every organization to adopt. We need to understand that in any knowledge, there are really three main components. What is it? How can it be done? And why do you want to have this information? And it goes back to the science, the technology, and eventually the innovation, right? So it is important that we cannot just jump straight into just-in-time learning. There has to be some baseline for a foundation knowledge, right? For the fundamentals to be appreciated. Then we get into a part whereby we start to absorb the knowledge and be able to understand the maturity, how that can be applied. It is also important that we're able to retain the knowledge and come to a point whereby as we adapt this knowledge into our work processes, we also change our behavior. Now, this brings us to the fact that we have to appreciate, first of all, the conceptual reasoning, which is the theoretical piece of what is the knowledge about, how we can connect that to the different ideas and perspectives of our business needs, and this is why you need the knowledge, and more importantly, eventually to contextualize it, to align it to the business, and then to be able to apply this. So this learning model that we are seeing is an evolution of how learning is going to take place, and it's important that the HR community appreciates this whole development and start to shift in their thinking of how HR processes should be put in place. So here we talk about a balance between memory retention, keeping the knowledge in your mind, and more importantly, how we take this memory knowledge and associate it to the right context and apply it accordingly. So in this regard, just back in July this year, I presented a paper at a San Francisco forum where I proposed the idea of I learn, you learn, and we learn, right? Today, many a times, we are very good with I learn. I go to a class, I learn, I remember, and I use the knowledge accordingly. We're probably pretty good at that. Memory retention is what we are looking at. However, we come to a point whereby when we are able to coach and guide our fellow workers, and I'm able to coach you, I'm able to guide you and teach you, I'm able to achieve the goal of you learn because I'm able to associate and guide you and give you the knowledge. In order for me to do that, I must master my memory retention and the knowledge I have. And eventually, I think it's important that we are able to work together and we learn together in terms of how the memory knowledge can multiply effectively. The recurrence of knowledge is I learn. The you learn applies to the recursion of knowledge. And most importantly, mutually we can discover and come to a point whereby as a service level, as a team, we can learn together. The future organization, as mentioned earlier, will be led by generative AI, enabled by generative AI and led by the humans. And there are different components that we need to look at, and HR needs to play a very important role to define how this is going to go. So if I look at training in a corporate environment, so there are many aspects of training, from onboarding to compliance, to product training, to leadership, to cross-training, sales enablement, and so on and so forth. So if we look at the whole spectrum of what training is about, there are actually quite a number of important aspects of training. First of all, what's the purpose? How are we going to deliver this training, right? The experience and the engagements that the learners are going through, how we're going to implement the learning, the knowledge that you learn and be able to execute it. And finally, the whole operations, whole measurement of how much knowledge has been transferred effectively. So HR needs to take a look at how, with the deployment of AI technology, with the adoption of new AI innovation, right, the different aspects of human resource management. Now, AI will definitely enable what I call adaptive learning. So adaptive learning is a part of interactive learning, which allows us to address the individual needs through different learning paths, through effective feedback and supplementary resources. And this is important because not every human, not every workforce is built in the same way and has the same set of background. So if we can build a learning model with AI embedded in it, right, to guide the whole learning process, to enable this to happen, then we find that we can build individualized learning journeys in the workflow for our workforce. And there will always also be continuous personalization and adaptation depending on the needs, depending on the job role, and more importantly, depending on how the learner, the worker can progress within the organization. This, of course, has to be evidence-based and fed back to the HR to monitor and understand. And more importantly, we should have real-time insights and analytics so that we can take immediate action and effectively help the learner to achieve the acquisition of knowledge. And most importantly, AI and automation must enable scaling. It has not been just for one individual, but it has to be a framework that allows a community, a larger group to learn effectively. So to do so, there are probably four main dimensions of adaptive learning. First of all, we must understand the learner profile, language, location, preference, likes, style, and so on and so forth. So the learner profile is important for us to match. And today we don't really look at learner's profile in traditional HR. We treat like one size fit all, and everybody who joins the organization can go through the same process of learning. But understanding learner profile will help to enhance the competency that we want to develop in the different workforce and how they can be effective on the job. Then, of course, we need to study the relevancy, the engagement model, and eventually how learner can take the knowledge and perform effectively. And that is really what we see as a true impact on business in terms of outcome, in terms of efficiency. Now, if HR will take a deeper look into this and understand how AI can play a part in each of these dimensions, then we can definitely see a greater success in how HR can play a new role, evaluation role in the future, such that they can develop the right competency within the organization to support the business needs. Now, to do so, let's understand a little bit about how AI can play a role in the different aspects of the training curriculum, right? Keeping AI in the center, there are probably four components, right? Understanding the learner profile, the journey, the contextualization, right? Understanding the outcome that you hope to achieve with the learning process and how it meets the needs of the business manager. The content design, more to suit the personalized learning journey, and more importantly, what role should the instructor, the trainer, or the coach play in the whole process of learning. So adaptive learning is a very important idea, right? Where AI can play a part, and more importantly, it will coach and guide the HR management in a new direction, such that just-in-time learning can be effected, and this can eventually generate greater outcome for the organization. I want to differentiate between the needs from the hype. I'm a fan of playing chess, and I guess some of you may be familiar with Garry Kasparov, right? In 1997, unfortunately, Gary lost to technology, right? He lost technology in the chess game, and honestly, that did not stop him from going away. He then discovered and realized that it is not that we need less technology because we fear technology. He feels that humans should continue to upgrade ourselves, and being better humans, we can then be masters of technology. Now, to do so, we all need to appreciate the fact that AI solutions and innovation is just a journey, it's just one of. As we deploy AI innovations into our business processes, it is an ongoing journey, and we will continue to evolve and develop the technology and innovation to help us achieve better. It is also important for us to rethink our current strategy and model on what is important, what is necessary. And as we incorporate this technology and innovation into our model, we have to redesign the future work and with the adoption of future technology, and more important, the future skills needed within organization. To kind of put things in context, we must understand that AI is a mix of generative AI, which you hear a lot about today, and computational AI, right? So the part whereby technology can generate new information, and the part where technology can actually use algorithm and fix rules to decide what we can do. So the combination of this is going to make it a lot more powerful for us to create and develop proof of concepts, prototypes, and that can be used as a first stage activity for the adoption of AI. And with that in place, it is also important for us to actually align use cases to strategic problems, because this will be the best showcase for us to have a broader adoption of AI. So when I look at learning and we look at human resource processes, right, in the age of AI, it is important for us to consider some of these factors, and as we start to figure out how AI can revolutionize just-in-time learning and in the workplace itself. So I use generative AI itself as a title, but I think it's important that we look at both generative and computational AI. However, having said that, there are a couple of concerns I want to highlight here. First of all, the technology is powerful, but not necessarily very mature at this point in time. Expectations are skyrocketing. Like all humans, you give them an inch, they expect a mile. So it's important that we manage expectations. And most importantly, we need to remove guardrails by vested interest and allow us to rethink how new models can be put in place. The technology brings about a combination of threats, but I believe as we start to adopt this technology and use it in the most appropriate way, we will be able to overcome all these challenges. Let me leave you with this final slide, right, that suggests that it is important as we move forward to co-innovate into the future. Many of us think we know AI, but really, we may not really know AI until you really do. It is very important for us to understand this message because I hear a lot of people talk about AI and what you can do and how they adopt AI, but when I start to peel the onion further and ask more questions, they are unable to answer those questions. What is the impact of AI? In this presentation, I shared with you how AI can affect the human resource and how AI can affect learning. Remember this, if we cannot create, if we do not make things happen, we really do not understand AI. Keep the message in mind. I hope you enjoyed the presentation I've just shared with you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you to the organizers for pulling this session together. My name is Oliver Tian again, and that's an email on the slide. Feel free to connect with me if you need to have any points clarified. Thank you very much for your time.